welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping into the source material you shared with us for this one.
Yeah, and it's a really intriguing audio piece. Calls itself How to Hack the Matrix.
But not the movie Matrix, right?
No, no, not digital code. This is all about, well, hacking the matrix of your own mind. We're going to be digging into awareness, reality itself, and what makes someone self-realized, according to this source.
Okay, so our mission, as always, is to unpack this for you, pull out the key ideas from what seems like a pretty dense source.
Exactly. Think of it as your shortcut to getting your head around these, well, pretty big concepts.
All right, let's get into it.
Where do we start?
Well, the source kicks off with something relatable. Trying meditation or breath
Yeah.
work, maybe just watching your breath for a couple minutes.
And you feel super relaxed, maybe even drift off a bit.
Exactly. And most of us, I think, see that as the main point, right?
Yeah.
Relaxation.
That's definitely how it's often framed today.
Hmm.
But this source pushes back on that a little. It
Yeah.
looks at like the ancient yogis. And it argues that, yeah, relaxation might happen. It's often a side effect, but it wasn't the ultimate goal for them.
Interesting. So if it wasn't just about, zoning out and relaxing, what was the aim then, according to this source?
Well, the source claims their goal was actually the opposite in a way, to become more alert, sharper.
Or alert to.
Yeah, to eavesdrop, as it puts it, on this cosmic mind, this non-local field of energy and information.
Wow, okay. Cosmic mind.
So relaxation, that's just the warm-up act. It's
Yeah.
getting rid of the static, the noise, especially in what the source calls our hysterical and melodramatic society.
So you relax to clear the decks for awareness, not as awareness.
Precisely. Relaxation is the prelude. Awareness is the main event.
And how does the source define that awareness?
It calls it the source of biological information and energy in everything that's alive.
Okay.
And here's a fascinating bit. It suggests that the same fundamental awareness is filtering through, my body, your body. But because the filters our bodies, our minds are different, it creates completely different worlds, different experiences for each of us.
Right. Same source, countless unique realities.
Yeah.
That's quite a thought. So how does the source say you actually do this? How do you access that deeper awareness? What's the hack?
Well, it's not about brute force. It's more subtle. It's about learning to slip in the spaces between thoughts.
Ah, the gap. That quiet space.
Exactly. Those moments when the usual mental chatter just pauses.
Okay.
And the source makes this, well, pretty extraordinary claim. It says, when you learn to access that gap consistently, you
Yeah.
can actually eavesdrop on the software.
Software.
Yeah, the software that not only runs the machinery of our own body, but the software that runs the machinery of the universe.
Whoa. The software of the universe. That's a big
It
statement.
really is. And it ties this ability directly to two key things, attention and intention.
Attention and intention. Okay.
These are framed as the two components of awareness.
Hmm.
Attention is seen as pure energy.
Just energy.
And intention, that's the transformation or information part.
So energy directed by information.
Yeah.
Or energy creating transformation.
Kind of both, it seems. And the idea is, from that state of awareness, in the gap, you use your focused attention, the energy, and your clear intention, the information or desired transformation to activate energy and information.
And this can actually change things in the body, for instance.
That's the claim. The source mentions that feeling of tingling or warmth or a rush of energy that people sometimes get even in a short breath exercise, focusing on the body.
Right.
It sees that as a small example of this principle in action, activating energy and information directly.
Okay, that connects some dots. It links to what the source says about ancient healing traditions, doesn't it? How they all work by influencing energy and information national state.
Which are just different expressions of consciousness itself.
Exactly. It's all consciousness manipulating energy and information at its core.
And this isn't just theoretical, right? The source connects it to gaining active mastery over life. Yeah, that's the outcome. It's not about controlling everything outside you, but about influencing your reality from this fundamental level, from consciousness itself.
Active mastery. So what does this person look like, the one who achieves this? The source mentions Maslow's self-actualized person.
Right, and also the Ayurvedic term, the self-referral person.
Self-referral, meaning they refer back to themselves.
Exactly. The reference point is internal, not external. The source says the key thing is they are not bound or imprisoned by the hypnosis of social conditioning.
The hypnosis of social conditioning.
Which, the source states pretty bluntly, is the everyday experience of people.
And then there's that really stark line it uses. What we call normal in our society is actually the psychopathology of the average.
Yeah, that one makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
It really does. It's suggesting that normal is maybe not optimal, that it's based on fear, maybe.
That's the implication. Fear, needing approval, following ingrained patterns without really questioning them. But the source then goes on to describe the person who's moved beyond that, the self-realized soul. It lists characteristics.
Okay, let's get into those. What's the first big one?
A really fundamental shift is where their sense of self comes from. It's moved from the ego to the spirit.
The spirit. But not just as a belief.
No, the source stresses it's known through direct experience. It calls the spirit a real force.
Yeah.
And then it says something pretty mind-bending, that the spirit is more real than gravity, more real than time.
More real than time. Wow. Okay, that definitely puts the spirit front and center. What's another characteristic?
They know how to handle toxins. And this is broader than you might think.
Not just bad food or pollution.
No, I mean, that's part of it, presumably. But the source specifically calls out toxic relationships and toxic emotions. It says these things create havoc in this quantum mechanical body. So your inner state, your relationships, they're just as important as what you physically consume.
Makes sense. Cleaning up the internal environment. What about needing approval? Does that change?
Completely. The source ties the need for approval, wanting external power, needing to control things, all that stuff directly to the ego.
Right.
And it calls these fear-based needs. They're compulsions that come from feeling threatened or insecure. The self-referral person, they've shed that. They don't need that external validation anymore.
They're free from that psychopathology, as the source put it.
Yep.
Okay, what about relationships? How do they view those? The source mentioned something about mirrors.
Yeah, this is fascinating. The idea is that those that we love and those that we hate are both mirrors of the self.
Both. How does that work?
Well, the logic presented is we're drawn to people who have qualities we admire, maybe ones we want more of ourselves, or ones we already have and value.
Okay, that makes sense for love. What about hate or strong dislike?
That's the other side of the coin. The source suggests the traits that really push our buttons or others are often the very traits we're denying in ourselves, things we don't want to admit we have.
Ooh, okay. So relationships become...
A tool for the evolution of our consciousness. Every interaction, positive or negative, is showing you something about yourself.
That really changes how you might look at difficult interactions, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Turning friction into fuel for growth.
Exactly.
The source also talks about the body, right? Experiencing the spirit through the body.
Yes, it emphasizes the body and the whole universe as being sensuous, full of joy, aliveness.
It says.
It uses examples like birds sing and children play and stars glitter and flowers bloom. It's about fully inhabiting your senses, experiencing that richness.
Right.
And it connects this directly to the sacred. It says that being truly centered in your body, experiencing this aliveness, is where you find the presence of God.
Wow.
And it throws down a challenge. If you cannot find God in a flower, if you cannot find God in a rainbow, if you cannot find God in the eyes of a human being, or anything else there in a blade of grass, then looking just in religious books won't get you there either.
So the divine isn't separate. It's in the experience of reality, in the sensuous world.
That's the perspective, yeah. And related to that, this person is centered in the present moment.
Present moment awareness. How does the source describe that?
Very simply, very directly. The past is gone, the future's not here. This moment, you're free of both.
Freedom, just by being here, now.
It's presented as liberation, letting go of the weight of yesterday and the worry about tomorrow.
Okay. And what about judgment? That's a big one for most people.
A huge one. The source says there's a need to shed the burden of judgment.
The burden of judgment. Interesting phrasing.
Yeah, because from this higher perspective, you start to see that all the labels we use, the divine, the diabolical, the sinner, the sane, the victor, the vanquished, they're just different disguises, different roles being played.
Masks, maybe.
Yeah.
Covering the same underlying essence.
Something like that. And this applies internally, too. It gives this instruction. Embrace and know your dark side and become intimate with it if you want to ultimately release it.
So you can't just push the bad parts away. You have to understand them, integrate them.
Exactly. You have to own them to move beyond them. You can't transcend what you deny.
That resonates with a lot of psychological and spiritual ideas. Acknowledging the shadow.
Right. And when you shed that fear and judgment, what takes its place?
Love.
Replacing fear-based behavior with love-based behavior, shifting from those ego compulsions to acting from a place of, well, connection and understanding.
Okay. And all these characteristics seem to lead towards a really profound shift in perception. seeing the whole universe as the self.
Yeah, that seems to be the pinnacle. The source says it's because that's all there is.
That's all there is.
And it uses these really striking, almost paradoxical phrases. I'm not in the world is in me.
Okay.
I'm not in the body is in me. I'm not in the mind is in me.
So experience isn't happening to a self located inside a body, inside a world. It's the other way around.
It seems so. The world, the body, the mind, they are arising within this fundamental awareness, the self. The source describes it as the self curves back within myself and create again and again.
Creating experience from within.
Wow. It's recognizing yourself as the source, the immeasurable potential of all that was, is, and will be.
The ultimate creative principle.
Yeah.
And this changes how you see desires too, right?
Yeah, they're not seen as frantic needs born from lack. They're more like seeds left in the ground,
Seeds.
just waiting for the right conditions, the appropriate season to naturally blossom into manifestation. They're inherent potentials within you, not something desperately missing.
That's a much calmer way to relate to desire.
Yes.
Okay, so we've gone through this incredible journey described in the source, accessing this cosmic software, the gap between thoughts, developing all these characteristics of a self-realized person.
Yeah, becoming self-referral, shedding the ego, seeing the world within you.
So the big question is, why?
Yeah.
Why do all this? What's the ultimate point of achieving this active mastery, this self-realization? What reason does the source give?
Well, after all that buildup, all that profound philosophy, the source relays an answer supposedly given by a seer, a yogi, when asked that very question.
Okay, and the answer was?
Simply, it's so interesting, why not?
Wait, that's it. It's so interesting. Why not?
That's what the source reports. After all the complexity, the motivation boils down to curiosity, the inherent interest of the exploration itself.
That's unexpectedly simple. And kind of refreshing, actually.
It is, isn't it? It grounds it all in a kind of fundamental drive to know and experience.
Well, that was certainly a deep dive into this source material. We started off looking at meditation, how the source sees it not just as relaxation, but as a doorway to deeper awareness.
Right. And we talked about the how, finding that space between thoughts, the gap, and how the source connects that to tapping into the software of reality using attention and intention, energy and information.
Then we spent a good chunk unpacking those characteristics of this self-referral person, the realized soul, moving beyond that hypnosis of social conditioning.
Yeah, things like dropping the need for approval, dealing with toxic emotions and relationships, seeing others as mirrors.
Finding the sacred in the sensuous world, living in the present, shedding judgment, acknowledging the dark side.
And ultimately realizing that sense of the world, the body, the mind being in you, not the other way around. Recognizing yourself as that potential.
It definitely offers a radically different way to think about, well, everything. Consciousness, reality, your own potential.
It's a framework that challenges a lot of common assumptions.
So, as you've been listening, maybe think about which of these ideas really struck a chord with you. Was it the power hidden in the silence between thoughts, the idea of relationships as mirrors, or maybe that simple freedom found in the present moment?
There's definitely a lot there to mull over.
And we'll leave you with this final thought, pulled straight from the source material to consider. If, as this source suggests, the world is in me and the body is in me, what does that actually change about how you experience your reality and perceive your own potential day to day?
Yeah, what shifts if you really take that idea on board? Something to reflect on.
Thank you for sharing the source material with us for the deep dive today. We hope exploring it together was, well, interesting.